Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we'll do another longer range update on what is going to be occurring throughout the rest of April and even into May. Now, I've been doing these updates for the last month or so because we have seen a sudden stratospheric warming occurring right at the start of March. So not only do we want to see sort of what could be occurring over the coming weeks and months, but also so we can look back on and verify those runs that we had a look at in the previous week or previous weeks. And hopefully in the future it can help us forecast a little bit better, looking for trends and looking for perhaps areas of bias within the ECMWF. So yeah, we're just going to do another update going through the latest weekly anomalies. And again, interesting signs as we progress through April, because we've got this big block around at the moment, but how long will it hang around for? Now we'll start by having a look at the zonal mean winds. Just showing you sudden stratospheric warming occurring, or has occurred a number of weeks ago now. And as expected, as all the forecasts and runs were showing, it was going to remain very negative territory up high in the stratosphere. So those zonal mean winds remaining in reversal for the rest of winter, and that's exactly what we've seen. And even as the polar vortex is expected to demise in the next kind of 3 or 4 weeks, we're expected to be below zero as well, until eventually we head into the summer months where it normally is in negative territory. So we are seeing recovery over the next couple of weeks, but still in ridiculously negative territory. And again, not surprised, we're seeing massive blocking patterns around at the moment. Now, of course, the runs over the past couple of weeks have shown perhaps colder blocking patterns. Now, that hasn't strictly occurred, and that's because the high pressure has been more over the top of us than towards Scandinavia or towards Iceland. So very subtle shifts in positioning of the high pressure has meant we've seen a lot more sunny, dry, and at times warm than cold, frosty, wintry pattern. We've seen some cold, we've seen some frost, and we're going to see that over the next few days. But it's not been persistent, and it's not been too severe either. So does it like the amplification wasn't as extreme as we thought it was going to be a couple of weeks ago, which is a good thing. It's meant that it's been dry and relatively warm and sunny. But will that continue? Now, this is the next week, coming up the 7th to the 14th of April, so this is a good few days' time, so ignore this weekend when we're expecting an easterly flow. See, high pressure's firmly over the top of us, not too much going on. You can see, though, following week, look at this. High pressure's gone well to our west, low pressure's replaced it. Now, we are seeing a few rumblings of this sort of pattern in the longer range of some of our daily videos on those operational runs, where we see high pressure moves to west, mid-Atlantic ridge, and northerly or northeasterly winds. Proper northeasterly winds, not just a northerly or easterly flow like we've seen recently. So this is the 14th to the 21st. This is almost 2 weeks away, so right at the end of the runs we look at daily. So again, not expecting to see this crop up too much, but it could start to crop up more in the coming days. So interesting seeing this. This would suggest something a bit more unsettled and something a bit cooler. But of course, happening into the second half of April, we're getting to a point where anything cold becomes almost impossible, because that cold air to our north does run out. So we'll have to wait and see what that sort of equates to at the surface, but definitely a chilly and unsettled pattern. The following high pressure extends back in, but it is still based further westward. So again, that would probably encourage more northerly and northeasterly flows, and into the final few frames, not too much of an overwhelming signal, but still blocking patterns to our north. So you can see definitely a lot of ramifications as a result of the sudden stratospheric warming. Exactly what it does at the surface, we've seen over the past couple of weeks, very dry and sunny conditions. But what will it do in the coming weeks as the risk of warmer or even hotter weather does become possible later on in April into May? You can see here, though, still extensive blocking to our north, which isn't too unusual for spring months, but the persistency we've seen it so far, with March being exceptionally dry. I don't know the exact statistics, but it's been one of the driest Marches, or it's been the driest March for many, many decades. And it has said, not completely down to the sun stratospheric warming, but definitely the last couple of weeks, we can say, has been as a result of that sun stratospheric warming, producing lots of high pressure blocking and completely destroying the jet stream, really, or at least the normal west to east flat jet stream. No, it's been amplified, it's been weak, and it's been a bit all over the place. Now, if you have a look now at the temperature charts. Now, we don't normally look at these in too much detail just because they sometimes are a little bit biased towards the warmer side, especially in the longer range. But you can see over the coming week, look at this, warm in the west and the north, the far south and east, cooler than average. And that is because we're expecting easterly flows. Not cold, bitterly cold easterly winds, but easterly flows, i.e. chilly air coming in off the North Sea. So it doesn't quite equate to what we see at the upper air level. And the pressure level, it looks pretty dry, warm, not really too much of a wind. But even a 10 mile an hour, 15 mile per hour easterly flow makes all the difference this time of year when the sea surface temperatures across the North Sea are still single digits. So it makes you feel much, much colder. And that's why in the south and the east, around the high, it is colder. Into the following week, though, it looks like we do lose that easterly and we do go a little bit milder. Not too much of an overwhelming signal, so it could be a bit of a transition week there. As we progress beyond that, again, lots of reds and oranges around, and that continues all the way into May. So a bit of wobbling in the next week or two, some easterly flows at times, but generally speaking, it looks like the ECMWF weekly anomalies here are definitely on board with quite a warm pattern, taking over into the second half of April and start of May. Now finally, if we compare it to the precipitation, now again, we'd expect to see very little precipitation here, giving the signal of high pressure. You can see this upcoming week, very little precipitation at all, literally none, well below average. You can see as we progress into the following week, lots of precipitation to our south, a bit to our north, and that would indicate we're slap bang under the higher pressure. Lots of green to our south, though, indicates a cut-off low, and that's why much of the Med and Iberia, southern France, Italy are swamped with precipitation. So perhaps a cut-off low occurring, big thunderstorms that could waft our way. Subtle shifts would occur or could occur, and that could bring thunderstorms our way. So that is something to keep a close eye on, but majority here suggesting a fairly neutral / dry month. You can see that disintegrates away. Eventually, high pressure looks like it sinks southwards. That agrees with the charts we just looked at with more of a centralised high, and that continues into the following couple of weeks. So there's a risk of a bit of a cut-off low developing during the middle to second half of April. Could bring some heavy rain to northern Europe, towards southern Europe, and that could waft our way at times. But generally speaking, looks like we're going to see well below average precipitation for the foreseeable future. And the final chart I just want to show is the weather regimes. Now, we looked at this a week or two ago, and it was solid red, i.e. Scandinavian high, which would suggest easterly flows. And we've seen that a little bit, but not perhaps as overwhelming as we initially thought. Now, still lots and lots of reds here. So still east of the Earth suggesting big blocks towards us, towards Scandinavia and the Baltic. So easterly flows could still occur. But if we just look at what happened a couple of weeks ago, where we saw lots of reds, and we've seen bits and bobs of easterly winds, but perhaps not quite as amplified or as strong as these charts had shown, which perhaps means going forward, perhaps does that mean that we won't see as much of an easterly flow suggested here, especially longer term. You can see the next couple of weeks, though, still high pressure around with that easterly flow the next kind of week or so, and then a bit more of an Atlantic ridge occurring and maybe a bit of a transitional pattern as we see high pressure potentially move back out into the Atlantic. But you can definitely see to the final week or so of April into early May, definitely a strong signal for that high pressure to return back over the top of us, extending northwards and eastwards. So I think it's going to be one we have to watch very, very closely. But our sort of predictions from a few weeks ago and over the past month or two have been fairly accurate. Again, perhaps thought there'd be a bit more application, a bit more of the way of northern blocking than European blocking. But we've got the general gist correct. We thought it'd be dry. We thought we'd see cooler spells with frost and colder feeling days. And that's what we have seen, just perhaps not quite as strong or as extreme as we initially thought. I think, though, the coming weeks will be very interesting to see how long this dry streak does continue and whether it does get significantly warmer as well as we progress closer and closer to summer. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.